So in early 2020, you formed Shifty Eye Studios. What can you tell us about the project Shifty Eye Studios is working on?
Unfortunately, we haven't announced it yet. It is based on a very popular movie IP. And we've been working on it for almost 2 years now. And so unfortunately, at this time, we can't say much about it, but we're super excited about announcing it, hopefully sometime next year. And that's about it.
You formed Shifty Eye Studios in Calgary, a city not that well known for gaming. Why Calgary?
Calgary represents several challenges. It's an oil and gas town and has been for many years. That said, I like challenges, and I think that Calgary has a lot of great young talent. There's tons of programmers and artists, and it's a great place to live. And I think beyond oil and gas, Calgary just wants to diversify in technology, and it's doing that. And we're kind of one piece of that puzzle. Calgary's not known for their gaming companies. We compete with cities like Toronto and Vancouver and Edmonton. And we're just trying to really put Calgary on the map as far as gaming companies go. Recently, there's been lots of activity. New World Interactive is here. We're here, and there's just much more interest as time goes on. But yeah, it's a bit of a challenge. Trying to find some talent is difficult at times. We've had to bring people in from Toronto and Vancouver, but so far it's worked out great.
What do you find so interesting about the video game industry that made your entire career revolve around it?
So, I started playing games on my Mac Plus. I think I was still in high school, 14 or 15, and I would go to my computer classes, and instead of going to lunch with my friends, I'd be the dork and I'd stay behind in the computer lab and start playing video games. And at that time, video games were super simple. I remember, I think the very first game I ever played was a game called Airborne, and it was just a very simple, stupid little game, but it got me hooked. And once you get hooked into gaming, it's kind of hard to let go of that. So throughout high school, I was really interested in seeing how games were made, developed, and of course playing them. I just love playing video games like SimCity and Doom and Marathon and those type of games. And I just decided early on I wanted to make it my passion. It was something that I really enjoyed, and I just kept on going with it.
You started your gaming career at Bungie Software. What was it like to work for Bungie some 20 years ago?
At that time, Bungie Software was a very small company. When I got to know Jason Jones and Alex Seropian, I think there were only 4 employees at that time. And they were coming out with a game called Pathways into Darkness, and I ended up meeting them at some restaurant in a suburb of Chicago, and we talked about the game, and then eventually just got to know them really well. And I started to get more and more involved with the company. At that time, I had a magazine called Inside Mac Games, and so I was writing an article about their latest game. And I just got to know them really well. We hung out a lot. We did things together. And once they released Pathways into Darkness, they went on to create Marathon, which is a first-person shooter game. And I started getting more and more involved in it. One day I remember I took the tools home, basically how to build levels. And I asked Jason, I said, hey, do you mind if I take this home? I just want to play with it. And I ended up playing with all their tools and made a level, brought it back to Jason. We started playing it, and he loved it. And we ended up putting it into the game, which was super cool. And then just basically eventually one thing led to another, and I was offered a job, and I started off as a production manager, and then eventually I was a producer on a title, and then eventually a project lead on Myth 2 and some other titles. So it just kind of evolved from that. So,
how different is the gaming industry between when you started at Bungie until now?
So, you know, when I started my gaming career at Bungie, it was very male inclusive. I don't remember any of the developers being females at that time, so there weren't, any artists, programmers, not even tech support had, females in it. And I would say that's been the biggest difference in the 20 years since, is that females have, really gotten into gaming, been studying, gaming design and artists. And so, here at Shifty Eye Studios, nearly 50% of our employees are females, and I love that. I think it's great because, we need diversity in this industry. Females and males are all very talented, they're all equal, and I just love the fact that we have, female artists here. We have level designers, we have a programmer who's a female. It's just absolutely fantastic. It's just great having that kind of diversity. And Canada's kind of well known for having a diverse population, and so we have people from around the world here. And that's another great thing about the gaming industry now versus what it was, 20 years ago. So a lot more inclusion and a lot more involvement from a diverse group of people, including females and different ethnicities and whatnot.
What's the most important thing about running a game studio?
That's a hard question. But I would say there isn't one single magical word or formula. It really is about surrounding yourself with very smart people who have a passion for gaming. And that's probably one of the most important things, is if you have great people around you who are, very smart, very dedicated, know what they're doing, then everything kind of just flows naturally through that. That said, I think that one of the most important things about gaming companies is culture. We try to exude a culture of inclusion, confidence. Everyone is a team member here, and everyone participates in the game. So even though I'm project lead on the game, it's not just me all the time. It's about what everyone thinks about the game and what we're working on, and then being involved in the game. Because then if they're involved in the game, then they're part of the game. They feel that they're part of the game. And so culture to me is very important. You have to have a good culture in the company, and that's at any company. And if you have that good culture, you have people who are just willing to work hard and feel involved, and you end up with hopefully a great game.
What's it like on a day-to-day basis as a project lead in the studio?
So as a project lead, you have to have your hands involved in kind of everything. So, I would say from a day-to-day standpoint, I tend to look at everything. So be it from, the storyline, level design, sound, music, we're working on the cutscenes now, and providing, feedback to all the artists and developers. And we do have a lot of meetings, which is part of it. But really, it's kind of being involved in every aspect of the game to make sure that we're kind of moving forward. And I tend to play a lot of our game. I play it a lot. And I see things that, I think we can do better, or maybe this is not as fun as we thought, and what can we change? And so as a project lead, you have to really play the game a lot. You have to understand the game, what you're trying to accomplish with the game. And ultimately, it's about having fun. You know, if the game's not fun, no one's going to play it. If the game is fun, then people will play it, people will buy it. So I would say project lead is kind of an all-encompassing role, and that's what I enjoy doing, is being involved in all aspects of the game.
What is your greatest personal achievement?
My greatest personal achievement, I would say it's probably my family. So I think without family, you don't have that centralized core that you need in order to move on in life. And by that I mean, like, just over the years, you can be involved in your work 9 to 5, but it's great to be coming home to someone and sharing in that family aspect of life. So to me, that's extremely important. So I would say that my family is my personal best achievement. That said, I'm not too much into achievements. I just want to make sure our company does great. That the game does great. But ultimately, everything that I do is for my family, and I'm very proud of that.
What do you do in your spare time?
So I like to travel a lot. My wife and I, we tend to travel 4 to 5 times a year. It was a bit difficult with COVID, but we ended up, traveling even during COVID, even though it was a bit risky. But, you only live once. You only live twice. For me, traveling is a big part of my life. I really enjoy it. I also just, in my spare time, I do play a lot of games. I tend to learn a lot about games when I play them. So I tend to be a gameaholic in that I will play lots of games for short amounts of time. I think it just helps me kind of understand what, I study game mechanics and, what they did with the art here and why did they make this decision to do this, or whatever. And I pay attention to the sound and the music and the interface and those type of things. So I do tend to game a lot, which my wife isn't thrilled about, but whatever. And then beyond that, it's just hanging out with my family and friends.
If you had the chance to go back in time and give your younger self advice, what would it be?
Patience. You have to have patience, because I would say in my younger years, I didn't have as much patience as I do now. So maybe I would get angry at some stupid little thing and, just tend to, either say something or lose my my focus and things like that. And so having patience is a virtue that you eventually learn over time. You tend to just chill out as you get older. And so that has helped me to realize that that not everything is, a big deal. So it's, you have to just have lots of patience with the process of building a game, for example. You have to have patience in your life. You have to see things in a different light. You tend to see things in a different light as you get older. So that's probably the one thing I would tell a younger Tuncer is, dude, just have some patience. It's gonna be okay. Everything's gonna work out. Just work hard and everything will be good.
Who has impacted you the most in your career and how so?
I would say probably my dad. No, definitely my dad, I should say. So my dad was an engineer. He built dams for a living, and he was very passionate about it. It was a job that he loved, and if he taught me anything, is that you have to love what you do. And so he taught me that, because he just loved building dams. I know it sounds weird, but he just really enjoyed that part of his life. So he ended up traveling everywhere. He worked in South America, he worked in China, he worked in Indonesia, he worked in Canada. So he worked everywhere, and so he really enjoyed his life. Now the other thing that really, he had this vision about computers and whatnot. So I remember asking him, I said, "Hey Dad," and this was like mid-80s or so, and I said, "Hey Dad, I want to buy a computer. What do you think?" He's like, "Absolutely." And it wasn't cheap at that time. It was like $4,000 to $5,000 to buy a Mac, right? And so, my dad was pretty frugal, but I would say that he was just like, yeah, let's go. And the next day we went to a computer store and we bought this, fancy Mac, and because he said to me, he's like, computers are the future. You need to learn this stuff, and you need to be part of this. And so to me, that was like the single biggest event that my dad had an influence on me. He saw that computers and whatnot were the future, so he really wanted me to get involved in that, and thankfully he did. So.
For someone who wants to get in the gaming industry, what advice would you give that person?
So that's a good question. I get asked that a lot. So really the most important thing if you want to get into the gaming field is you have to have an amazing portfolio. So if you're an artist, for example, work on your 2D designs, your drawings, and put that on ArtStation. And if you're into 3D modeling, put all your work on there. Even if it's not for a job, you yourself learning how to make 3D models, let's say, or if you're into animation, put all your work up and create an awesome portfolio. Because in the end, people who want to hire you will look at your portfolio and see that you've dedicated all this time to it. And so if you're an artist, for example, that's what I would say is work on your portfolio. Make sure it's just stellar. If you have a personal website, make sure it's clean, it's awesome. Tell your story about why you love gaming and why you love building 3D models, for example. If you're a level designer, we come across this all the time. We come across level designers who don't have too much industry experience, but they've dedicated hours and hours and hours building levels for, Halo or whatever games that they can mod out there, right? And so we've actually hired people based on that. It's all their personal work that they've done over time, and we've been really impressed by all their, how they designed their level on paper, and then brought that into Unity or Unreal and built this level out of their imagination. And to us, that's the most important thing. And then some other aspects like programming or sound, music, whatever it is, you have to have just great work. And by that I mean it's not just about studying, it's about putting your studies into your work and putting up an awesome portfolio. And if you do that, you will get hired. If you don't put up your work and you just send in a resume and not show off your work, you're not going to get hired. So if you want to get into the game industry, that's what I would say is my single biggest advice is work on stuff on your own that you can put on the web. You know what I mean? And put an awesome portfolio up and you will get a job in the game industry. And don't give up. That's the most important thing.